Welcome, everyone, to Take Human Action PA, episode 59. I'm Calvin. I'm your host, and we'll be joined by Jacob in just a minute here. So before we get into it, I just wanted to say, make sure that you are subscribed to our YouTube and our Twitter and Facebook. We're streaming to all those places right now. We also have our podcatcher, so you can find us on just about any podcatcher out there. The episodes are released a week or two after they come out live on the other platforms, so definitely check that out. So we have a very special episode for tonight. There have been some conversations back and forth between people who are involved in the Free State Project and Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, and well, a lot of the members of the other state parties and the national party. So we're gonna get into all that with our guests for tonight. So he is a member of the Free State Project and Libertarian Party of New Hampshire. Let me pull this up. So this past year, he redesigned and ran PorcFest, more than doubled his size, and was New Hampshire's Liberty Activist of the Year in 2022. Keynote Speaker at New Hampshire Liberty Forum, and he's been a libertarian for over 42 years and #1 writer on libertarian topics on the competitive intellectual essay site Quora before he was deplatformed from that. So we'll get into all that. How are you doing, Dennis Pratt?
Hi, Calvin. Thank you for inviting me on.
I think you're muted.
Oh, shoot. Is that I?
Let me check on my end. Make sure it's
I can hear him fine, Calvin. Can you hear me?
Testing.
Okay,
1, 2, 3.
That might
testing,
be an issue on my end, so I'll get that
Hey,
fixed.
Jacob. How you
Hey,
doing?
Dennis. How are you doing?
I heard that you had kids on tonight.
I had kids on tonight?
Yeah, you had some family duties or something. And...
Oh, well, yeah, that's every night. when you got 4 kids. Looks like Calvin's having technical difficulties, so he'll be back in a minute. So I guess I'll run the show until he gets back. So, Dennis, thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. Get a chance to talk to you, get to know you a little bit more. Maybe to start out, while we're waiting for Calvin to get things sorted out. I mean, Calvin gave you a little bit of an introduction there, but why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more, tell people, a little bit about your background, how you became a libertarian, and what you do.
Yeah, so I've told the story many times. I don't want to bore other people, but I came to libertarianism about 42, 43 years ago. I came from the left. I was working with someone who's an arch conservative, and we debated every single day, to just to waste time. And luckily, both of us really, really cared about consistency. And we finally came to something where he gave up on foreign interventionism and body laws. I gave up on the economic laws. We had something that was consistent and beautiful, and we were going, "That's weird. What is this?" We had no idea what we had created. And a few months later, about 6 months later, in the Chicago winter on a bus, I saw a piece of paper floating on the snow as back and forth as the bus started. I was reading it upside down. I picked it up. I ran out of the bus. I jumped on a payphone. I said, "Hey, I know what we are." I was telling my friend, "I know what we are. There's a word for what we are. We're libertarians." So that was when I finally realized that I was a libertarian. I went to my first Libertarian Party meeting, I think in '82, and I was really disappointed in Chicago. I remember I'm coming from the left, and so kind of more heartfelt and that type of thing. And these are kind of more Randian folks, and it just wasn't all that interesting. But I did start. I did start getting into Reason and Cato and started reading a lot more and read Rothbard, and all of a sudden my eyes really opened. So So I've been involved with libertarianism for a long time, trying to find all different ways to spread the message. What I think is one of the most beautiful messages ever about human freedom and the potential for human freedom, and how we could really expand the experiences of each person, increase wealth, increase well-being. And it's just such a beautiful thing, and I've really felt it, kind of a calling to share this, and so I've spent decades and decades and decades, 4 decades, trying to explain this to people or find ways around explaining it to people or let people accidentally find it. So I always get a kick at when newbies come in and they say, well, all we need to do is I say, God bless you. I hope you know the path. I did become the #1 writer on libertarianism on Quora, for example, fairly recently. And I wrote almost 2,000 essays, almost all from an ethical perspective, though. So, kind of not, of course, I understand the consequentialism and things like that. I have a pretty strong, I have 2 graduate degrees and stuff like that. I have a very strong background in the economics and things like that. But I'm primarily an ethicist. I see that as the foundational bulwark of libertarianism. That one owns oneself, and from that I can derive everything. And I think that it's impossible to deny that without a performative contradiction. So, I did that for a while. I was eventually kicked off as a part of a January 6th sweep, which was very surprising because I wasn't involved in the political aspects. I was talking about ethics. But by then I had migrated to the Free State Project, as something that was a really different in kind approach to creating a libertarian society. And I was so busy by then creating liberty. I was volunteering in all these different groups and trying all these different things that I was happy not to be writing anymore. And so I just allowed that to go. Although my essays are still up there. You'll bump into one. I think they're down now to about 1,600 or 1,700. They're slowly being kicked off by Quora's algorithms, but there's still a lot out there. I still reference them to the few people who want to read something long.
Cool. No, that's awesome.
Here I am. I live in New Hampshire. I've been here for about 5 years. I've been doing all these different things that actually build real liberty, building networks. I'm not all that political. I don't like the political process. I like I said, I'm more of an ethicist. So, I've done things where I've worked with. We have one group that reviews all the bills that are introduced to determine whether they are pro-liberty or anti-liberty. And I just get so outraged reviewing these bills. I just go on forever. You're right. How dare they? And so I really appreciate the political people. We have a large number of political groups here in the Free State. I think one of the ways to think of the Free State is if you took all the functions that like a Libertarian Party might do, and you populated that Libertarian Party with a lot more people, and then you broke it up into 100 different groups. That's really what we have here in the Free State. So we have all these different groups doing all these different things, different aspects. Our biggest political group is really the Liberty Republicans. We have a large number of libertarians and caps even actually in the State House, actually getting rid of laws, and making it safer for humans to be different from whatever the past legislators were thinking. But we also have people here who build infrastructure or are on farms, or I'm primarily in the community building area. That's what I do. I create groups and community clubhouses, and we now own an inn, and so I do a lot of that type of stuff, which is more bringing people together.
Right. So for those who don't know, could you say what exactly the Free State Project is and how you found out about it?
Sure. The Free State Project is a very different strategy, as I mentioned. There's a number of different strategies. I've outlined them ad infinitum. The primary one, though, is kind of a conversion / electoral strategy, where you try to convert other people to libertarianism, and you hope that you can get them to vote for the Libertarian Party, and in that way, you might be able to get enough libertarians in there that you could turn around that spiraling down into authoritarianism. The Free State Project basically says, look, it's really hard to convert people, super hard to convert people, and as a matter of fact, it may be one of those things that it takes a special type of person, and you're not really converting them; you're kind of uncovering them. What if instead of trying to convert 100 million Americans and then somehow getting a libertarian United States, what if instead of trying to do that, which turns out to be a Herculean effort, and we see no one capable of doing that, what if we just collect the most serious libertarians, the ones who really are willing to sacrifice and build real liberty, and we prototype a libertarian society in one state, and we do that not by conversion, and not by concealment, and not by camouflage and pretense. We do that basically by having enough libertarians there that it becomes libertarian. It's like, the Mormons take over Utah, not by pretending to be Christians, and then they sneak in and they go, oh, we're going to pass Mormon laws and what have you. They just move in enough Mormons to make it Mormon. The gays turn San Francisco gay by having enough gays. Chinatown, Israel, that type of thing. So this is a migration strategy. It's a concentration strategy. And it's, if you're dispersed, you're very few and dispersed, you have extremely limited power. And so one of the strategies is to retreat and consolidate into one place, and then set that place as a toehold. So that's what we're doing in New Hampshire. We picked New Hampshire 20 years ago. I didn't pick it. I knew about it, but I knew about it from one of my socialist friends, and I didn't trust he knew anything about libertarianism, so I totally ignored him. But they voted on a number of different states, and there were a lot of criteria. We hear that choice second guessed now, even 20 years ago, even after 20 years. But I think that it was a very wise choice for a lot of the criteria that really are helping us make big dents into this, into the authoritarianism that's here. And then the idea was that if we got, I think it was 15,000, 20,000 to sign up, that would trigger the move. But so many of the libertarians who signed up early moved early. And so we've had this steady trickle in of people who really believe and love liberty, and they love liberty enough that they're willing to leave their authoritarian friends, leave their authoritarian businesses, leave their authoritarian state, and move here and actually try to create something new. It's hard, though, and it's getting easier. It gets, every single time we get a new free stater, it's easier, because they pick up some other area. They join one of the 100 or so groups. But early on, the first person to move, boy, that was hard. I actually know mover zero. She insists on being called mover zero. That's how big of nerds we are. So now we're 20 years in. We've had, my best guess is that we've had maybe 12,000, 13,000 move. We probably have about 7,000, 8,000 still in state. People will leave for a variety of reasons. Some of it is just kind of burnout, especially the early folks. It's like I said, it was hard. But we just had a sweetheart die yesterday. So we just have natural attrition, natural churn. And we've just made tremendous progress. Most people just care about our political progress, but it's really the infrastructure, the networks, the parallel institutions, the community, the support. We had a meeting last night. Brand new group, Mises Club. They can't call themselves Mises Club because Mises Institute turns out that they want some control over anything called Mises Club, but it's a Mises Club. And we met at the inn. We had 14 people show up for just an organizing meeting and planning, drinks. And we talked about the impact that Mises Institute has had, the philosophers there that have had on us, and what our hopes are. And we actually have an agenda for the entire year. We'll meet once a year and have kind of outreach, but, talks on economics and, even going over into homeschooling and things like that.
Yeah, so it sounds like Free State Project covers a lot of different areas just across the board, and definitely has brought a lot of people there.
Yeah, it's interesting because most people think, well, if it's libertarians, then it has to be libertarians like it was in New Jersey or it was in Chicago or was in any of the other states, and it's just not. We have diverged into so many different groups, and all the different groups are doing different things. I myself am part of, I don't know, 4 or 5 pretty hard working groups that are doing different things. Like one of my big initiatives here is autonomy and dying. We call it the Live Free, Die Free bill. And it's going to be introduced, I think it was introduced this week. So that's going to be introduced to basically allow people who are near the end of life to be able to decide that they may die. Now, I'm working primarily with Democrats, but we have a good liberty group that's behind this bill. Now, the establishment Republicans, the fundamentalist Republicans, the Trump Republicans, they're not on board with that. So that's just one group. And so we have a lot of single issue groups. We have a lot of groups that help with electioneering and bill reviews and things like that. But we also have groups that are social and supportive, and a free food network, for example, and things like that.
Yeah, so I mean, I think a lot of us are very complimentary towards the Free State Project, and we're glad you guys exist, and we're glad for all the work that you guys are doing in New Hampshire. What sort of spawned this this conversation we're having is that anyone who's paying attention, I guess, to at least libertarians on Twitter, is that there's been a little bit of some hemming back and forth and some arguing in the Austrian Mises libertarian sphere, which I think we're all part of. Some of it's over the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire and their strategy and messaging and things like that. Although I think some of it also just touches just the strategy of the Free State Project in general, and I guess maybe a good place to start might be I've seen you use the phrase, and others use the phrase, the authoritarian 49, when we're talking about different strategies that different people are using, and I understand where you guys are coming from, and there's definitely, I think, some merit and reasoning behind the idea of trying to concentrate a lot of people in a particular area to affect change there. But I guess the two questions I'd kind of want to get into at the start here are, one, are you 100% convinced that creating new libertarians is either impossible or just a poor return on investment compared to pursuing the Free State Project strategy? And then two, what do you say to people, what should they do if, for whatever reason, and, we could always nitpick or second guess people's reasons, but, not everyone is either going to be able to or be inclined to get up and move. Some people have roots in the places that they live. I don't think that means that they love liberty less. It just means that, we have hierarchies of values. And I'll use myself for an example. Like I have a very strong connection to my family and my church, which are both tied here. And then I also have a pretty good thing going with my career right now. So those are factors that I have to consider. Like if I get up and move, that's a big change for not just myself, but my wife and my kids. I got to think about their needs. So the idea of, the Free State Project and moving to Hampshire can sound appealing, but you have to weigh it against those other things. And so that's where I guess I want to get you to comment on that and to comment on the, the idea of if it's worthwhile to, for anyone to be putting energy into converting new libertarians.
Yeah. So first of all, I do come up with a number of terms. Authoritarian 49 is one of my favorite ones. So I apologize to you guys, but boys, it's great. And really, we live in an authoritarian 50, where all the states. It's not like there's steady state in a particular level of authoritarianism. Every single one of them is moving towards ever greater authoritarianism. And it would be true also here in New Hampshire if we didn't actually have a way into the legislative body and actually be able to, review every single bill and say, hey, this is, and then really get the numbers in there, both the numbers to call, but also the numbers of legislators to actually fight and beat these things back. Authoritarianism is that always constricting monster. And the question is, what do you do if you're a very, very few libertarians in an ever increasing, ever growing authoritarian state? What do you do? In a way, I kind of feel bad for people who are stuck in there. Now, I was stuck in there for 37 years. And it is a depressing thing. I actually went through, I have like 7 different things that libertarians might be going through, including conversion and supplication, like Cato Institutes. We want to appease our masters and make them understand that they can get more tax dollars out of us if they give us a little bit more freedom. So there's all these different strategies, with concentration being one.
I think we're all pretty united in opposing that particular strategy.
Well, there's a number of strategies. There's a large number of strategies, but one strategy is just depression. And I went through that, for about 8 years of just, this is not going to happen. I stood out on the Chicago streets, getting signatures in the 80s and, going to the convention in 88, when Ron Paw was elected, and just beating my head against the wall over and over again. And every once in a while, I'd hear the word libertarian and would be like, we're gonna break through now. I think there's a lot of burnout. I think we lose a lot of libertarians for no reason, and we kind of blame ourselves. We go, well, if I could just explain this better, if I just had a better argument, if I could just be more eloquent, if I did this or did that, and we complain about each other, right? Like how everyone complains about LPNH, or we complain about ourselves. We beat ourselves up. My brother-in-law, I thought he was going to see it, but he just didn't see, and I think conversion is extraordinarily hard. I think most people are flotsam, and I don't have a good word for it, but they float with whatever the current zeitgeist is, and the zeitgeist is authoritarian, and so they float authoritarian, and you cannot get them to change unless you have a gigantic move the other way. And we're doing that in New Hampshire. You guys don't have enough people to do it, right? You guys are way outnumbered. But then the authoritarians, they are not. Most of them are just not going to be converted, and you can spend a lot of time. I actually am working on a tool to help people better target their conversations. What are the characteristics of somebody who might be able to be open to libertarianism? So I have, 10, 13 different characteristics, and I'm going to have some questions, and, because one of the things I just think it's terrible that there's this beautiful, beautiful a vision of how we could live together consensually, not using violence against each other. And the people who see it, they think, oh my God, this is so fantastic. And then they think the only way that they can do it is to convert the unconvertible. And so they go and say, start arguing with their brother-in-law and their sister-in-law, and they ruin Thanksgiving dinner. And everyone says, oh, well, the problem's you. Why do you have to be so discordant? We all agree. And they're right. I'm sorry. Both sides are right. First of all, he's right in that vision is beautiful. And what we need is a libertarian society. We need that. We need that for the people who see it and who want it really badly. But it's also true of the people who are just going along to get along, the flotsam. They don't want to deal with this, and they're not open to it. They just don't have the capabilities. They don't have the tools. They don't have the personality to actually be able to convert. And so you can spend a large part of your life. I have spent a large part of my life wasted on trying to convert people who are not convertible. Now, I have converted a lot of people on Quora. There are people, you'll see articles about, written about how I've had so much impact, and I let them see and understand what this libertarian. But those are people who had specific capabilities to be open to this. And the idea that we're going to convert 100 million people and turn the United States into a libertarian country, my goodness gracious, what hubris. Or that you're going to convert 6 million Pennsylvanians into my Lord. Oh, I mean, we have, I don't know how many, say that we have somewhere around 2 million, 3 million or so, maybe libertarians, and in a broad sense. And I'm not talking about the people who just kind of happen to vote because they hate Hillary or Trump, or they can't stand Biden. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about people who they kind of understand what we're talking about, and they kind of go along. Now push comes to shove, and it's their area. They're going authoritarian. A lot of them are going to go authoritarian. But let's say that we're talking about that number. In that number, there's a very small fraction that are really, really serious, that they want to live in a libertarian society. Why are these people wasting their lives trying to convert 330 million people? We can congregate and bring people to one place and actually have a libertarian society. Now, you talked a little bit about, you have friends, you have a job, but you live it. Yeah, I gave a talk at I gave the keynote talk at the Liberty Forum, and my talk was basically how libertarianism, being a libertarian in an authoritarian society, is like being a non-cannibal in a cannibalistic society. And I actually went through all the different strategies that we have in libertarianism, and applied it to, what would it be like to be in a cannibal society, and trying to apply those things. And and a lot of them just ended with you being eaten, because you're so outnumbered. So I know every one of us, almost every one of us, has made this switch. I made it from democratic socialist, which a lot of you guys don't think that that's possible.
Hold on. I was a registered Democrat in 2015, Bernie Sanders supporter. I attended Occupy Wall Street rallies and stuff like that. So I'm right there with you. It's possible for based leftists to convert to libertarianism.
Yeah, that's right.
Although
there you go.
They're far and few between these days, unfortunately, or they're suppressed by the Democratic majority, although I think Robert Kennedy has done a good job at resurrecting that contingent. But
yeah, and you're absolutely right. You started mentioning, there was some characteristic about you that's different from the other leftists. And that's really what we're looking for. If you want to get into the conversion business, we have to qualify people a lot better.
Oh yeah, I 100%.
Few of us.
I 100% agree with you on the point that we can't convert everybody, and in fact, we can't even convert 50%. I think of the population. We need to be strategic about the time we spend in outreach. and different things require different amounts of time. Like I think, writing an article, putting out a podcast, that's something that those are resources that I think are useful. But bringing things up with your family, your friends, your coworkers, things like that, yeah, you do need to be a little bit strategic. Although I think there's converting people to libertarianism, and then there's talking to someone about a particular issue and trying to move them on that issue, especially if you're engaging in local politics and stuff. And I find that second category isn't quite as hard as some people make it out to be. Like you can talk with your average, moderate Republican or even Democrat about things going on in your local community and pitch libertarian ideas, not even in a libertarian packaging or wrapper, and just kind of like just make the argument for why this is a better use of resources. This is better for our community and stuff. And I don't think you get as much resistance as you do if you're actually trying to convert people wholesale to embrace our entire philosophy in a single conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have that experience working with a bunch of Democrats on this autonomy and dying bill. I'm the only libertarian in the inside group. Although I actually created another group, which was just the Liberty people, when we call that just Die Free. The group that I'm working with has this like just enormously long name of every single alliance, and it's just terrible marketing. And our group is just Die Free. But yeah, and they're like going, yeah, of course I own my body. Of course this is my decision. Because, initially they didn't come at it from an ethical perspective. As a matter of fact, to them, the ethics were against them. They were scared of it. And it was like, no, who owns you? So they actually, I'm really proud because they for a long time were calling this the Live Free, Die Free bill, which was really a nod to my influence. They have just gone back on it because they went out to all the Democratic people, and they don't understand, the Democratic legislators, and they don't understand that, and so they're going back to a nerd, more regulatory, more but not an ethical perspective. But I do think that you can make progress there. But I'll tell you, the progress that really you can make is if you're bringing Liberty representatives along with you. Then all of a sudden you're making progress. Then all of a sudden people are listening to you. We actually have a lot of I think the Mises Caucus believes that what you can do is kind of get on a zoning board, or you can get on a school board, and one person there will make a difference. We're seeing that that's hard to do. Even here in the Free State, what we're seeing is you get on there and you still have all the people who are the cronies and the people who are seen trying to get rent and trying to get special privilege, and they're not changing their mind. And really what we need is more libertarians there, push those people out and just say, hey, what we need here is more freedom. We need the freedom of people, and in zoning of property owners to be able to decide what they want to do with their own property, and in schools have the parents decide what they want to do with their own child. The people who have interest are very well organized. They spend a lot of money against us. They target libertarians specifically. I was telling Calvin that we just had a 27-page document drop today about the dangers of the Free Staters in New Hampshire and how horrible we are for democracy. Now, do they do that in Pennsylvania? Do they spend millions of dollars vilifying you in Pennsylvania? Because they do that to us here, and the reason why is because we are having an impact. We are actually threatening freedom, which they don't want. They want their cronyism, they want their rent, they want their special interest, they want control, they want power, they want preferences, and they want profit. And we threaten that, and we saw just last year, millions of dollars came in on just one issue. Now that millions of dollars is being spent, instead of being spent against you and all your states, it's coming up against us. And you can thank us very much for taking that money out of their coffers against you guys. But
Well, yeah, and I don't think it's a zero-sum game. Like I think you guys are moving the needle in your state, but I think that has ripple effects for the rest of the country. You know, I don't think it's a completely disconnected machine. You know, I think as you guys make victories there, we can in our other states point to what you guys are doing when we're involved in our local, you know, whether we're on city councils or school boards or just, you know, talking to people in our community and be like, look at what's going on there. That could happen here. And again, and having a conversation about the specific issues that people are concerned about. I mean, I know a lot of people in my community who are not libertarians, but if I talk to them about the problems with the public schools and the problems with parents not having you know, a choice for where to send their kids, not having enough choice into what their kids are being taught in public schools, and all the hurdles that we have to jump through as like, I know a lot of homeschoolers because we're in homeschooling communities, both in our church and just in our community. And, you know, and here in PA, there's a lot of hurdles to do homeschooling. And so, you know, so like, let's say, for example, hypothetical, you guys, you know, made some noise about homeschool legislation or helped push some kind of homeschool legislation through, school choice through. That's something that, you know, it helps you guys out, but that's certainly going to help the entire liberty movement in the country out, because it you know, it's not like people can't look and see what's going on there and then point to that when they're talking to other people and say, you know, this is something that we can do if we take action together. And I think the secondary effect of that is that does work towards converting the people who can be converted. Or making them more open to having those sorts of conversations. But even if you can't make someone, you know, it's like, you know, listen, I'm as anti-war as they come. But when I'm engaged in local politics, I'm not maybe going to die on the hill of like my neighbors who have their Ukraine flags and stuff and are, you know, really in favor of, you know, protecting democracy around the world. It's like, listen, like I'll have that argument with them if they want, but it's like, you know what? I will put that aside if we agree on school choice, or I'll put that aside if we agree on, you know, some issue that we can coalition on together. And I think that's where the Mises Caucus and the strategy they want to employ for the Libertarian Party really comes in handy. But I don't see that as being opposed to what you guys are doing. I guess a question I would have is that do you see what you guys are doing and what the Mises Caucus and what people like Calvin and I are doing in other states as necessarily being like this zero-sum contest, or do you agree that there can be this sort of you know, synergistic collaboration where the things you do are going to help us, and then conversely, like as we are out there converting more libertarians, well, some percentage of those people are probably going to end up moving to New Hampshire. Not to mention, I think if there are just more libertarians in the country, that makes it easier for libertarian ideas to be passed anywhere, including New Hampshire. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, whatever your goal is, if you have 10 times the number of libertarians behind you, it's going to be easier. That's all I'm saying. So, you know, if your goal, and in Pennsylvania, you're always going to have a much lower penetration than we will in New Hampshire, because we're increasing our penetration. Now you're saying, well, you know, on single issue, I may not be able to convert people, but I may be able to get them to go along with me. So I think you're kind of agreeing with me that conversion is a lot harder. And that what you're saying is that you might be able to get single issue. You know, we led in homeschooling for a while there. We have a $4,500 not a voucher, but an education. But you can use it for homeschooling. You can use it for parochial schooling. You can use it for anything that you want. You know, there is a limit. I think it was 3 times the poverty level, and we raised it this year to 3.5 times the poverty level. So And we're actually in competition. I don't remember which state we're in competition with, but we trade off one and one on that. And I like that type of ratcheting. That's excellent ratcheting. We're number one in guns. We trade off with Wyoming on that. We're number one in crypto. We're number one in a lot of areas, and we certainly expect that you guys can point to that and utilize that. We want liberty. Of course we'd like to have liberty everywhere, but the trouble is that to point to something, you have to actually have it first. In order to have a free state, you need libertarians here. It's like okay, we're starting to get Mormons into Utah, and you're saying, well, I'm a Mormon and I'm in Pennsylvania, and I may not be able to convert people to Mormonism all that easily still, but I am doing a good job of getting them to see some of the points that we're making. They're still going to not be Mormon, but I still need more of a model. And I think it's actually easier to convert someone to Mormonism than it is to convert someone to libertarianism. I think libertarianism is a hard road. It's a hard.
That's a bit of a difficult subject for him.
Yeah, we'll skip over the Mormon example, but I mean, I guess
you heard the debate that we had at PorcFest this year, right? That was
I don't know if I did.
It was easier to convert someone to homosexuality than it was to convert somebody to.
Oh yeah, I think I did hear that. Right. I listened to that. The Soho forum.
Yeah, the Soho forum. So yeah, I mean, it's a difficult thing that you're asking for, and you said 50%. You go, well, not 50. I mean, come on. I mean, I would be shocked.
No, I said it's less than 50%.
I know, but
it's probably we're probably talking on the high end 10 to 20%. If I were to be optimistic,
and I guess we have to talk about what you would call libertarianism. Calvin and I were talking earlier about how the Ron Paw movement, and then what happened to the Ron Paw movement. Well, yeah, it uncovered a lot of people who were latent libertarians who had those characteristics and stuff like that. But then we had we had this proverbial libertarian to alt-right movement, and it was like, oh, if you become libertarian, you become alt-right, and it was like, no, that was just flotsam. They were never really libertarian. They didn't quite understand it, and they moved to where they're stuck in an authoritarian area. I mean, we're hoping that the flotsam will move to the libertarian side in a libertarian state. But I mean, if you're still in an authoritarian state and everybody around you is still authoritarian, they still think that they can rule you, and they still think that they can threaten you with violence in order to get their profit or preferences or their projects through. And that's the vast majority. And I think we're talking 2%, 3%, 4%. I think that's what we're talking about in terms of libertarian, but we may be talking about different definitions what a libertarian means. So you have 95% are in that area. The flotsam isn't moving to you. They're moving authoritarian. They like that authoritarian beat, especially when the authoritarians say, oh, you can have anything you want, and all you have to do is just vote for this guy, and
but the authoritarian system we live in is not exactly at the height of its power anymore, and as that the fiat currency system continues to crumble, as the warfare state and the empire starts to weaken. I don't know. Maybe this is just a difference in opinion over the trajectory we're on in the next 10 to 20 years. But I think the empire is going to weaken. I think it's going to fragment, and I think I already see on the left and the right people starting to move in that direction where they're not libertarian, but they're becoming increasingly in favor of decentralization. I mean, so one of the I try to listen to everybody, left, right, center. I remember listening to Ben Shapiro and Anna Kasparian have a conversation, and I mean these are two people that couldn't be further from each other, right? You got Ben Shapiro, who's a neocon who LARPs as a libertarian sometimes, and you have Anna Kasparian, who is a progressive and good on a couple issues, but but they disagreed on a lot. But then there were like 3 things that they agreed on. They agreed on local government being what matters the most and increasingly matters the most. They surprisingly agreed on the Federal Reserve and our monetary policy being flawed. And they agreed on I forget the third thing, but I mean those 2 things right there are huge. And so anyway, I just think that's a factor in the equation. Like, I don't think we're just caught in a inertia of never ending growth in authoritarianism. You know, we have other factors that we have to consider that neither you or I can perfectly predict, but I find it hard to believe. Like, I just don't think that we can grow the level of authoritarianism at the rate it's been growing, and I don't think that can happen. I don't think it's sustainable. We already see that's cracking and falling apart. So I think we're going to inevitably have a move towards more decentralization and localism, and I think America, the empire's falling apart. I don't think they're going to be able to maintain the global pressure they have, militarily or economically. And we're going to go from living in a unipolar world to a multipolar world, and that's going to have ripple effects into the way people view politics and view what the role of government is. It doesn't mean they're going to become libertarians, but I think that creates a opportunity for libertarians to have more of a influence in the political system.
Well, God bless you. I hope you're right. But now, I have decades of experience and I've seen this over and over again. I came out of the hyperinflation and the hyper unemployment, that was supposedly the death knell of Keynesians, right? We actually thought that had killed off Keynesian. Did it? It didn't, right? We came out of the failure of the Vietnam War, and we came out of the failure of the Iraq hostage crisis. We thought, oh, okay, now all of a sudden we're going to be humble, right? Did it? I have been impressed. I have been impressed by the number of times that people are going, oh, well, this is the turning point. We're at the turning, and authoritarianism is just cranking and cranking. And I don't want to argue crystal balls. I don't want to argue that. I'm much more pessimistic. I'm much more worried. I'm glad that I'm actually living in the free state because I think that's the greatest hope for the future. And if you're wrong, this is the safest place to be. I hope you're right. I really do. I hope for mankind you're right. But I would never have guessed that we would be killing millions of people all across the globe, and people would just be yeah, go Ukraine. I'm going, what is going on? I'm freaking out here. I'm looking at this. I'm going, I have never seen this lack of regard for other human beings and for mass murder, and for our neighbors being blown up for useless stuff. And for all this money being stolen from them, and the counterfeiting of the Fed, and I'm anti-capitalist. I just don't understand it. Now maybe you're right. Maybe there's something going on that I don't recognize, and I hope you're right. I'm just happy to be here.
No, and listen, I mean, for the sake, we could go back and forth on some of these things, but for the sake of time, I'm going to try to keep things moving along. I mean, listen, I love the free state. I have never told someone who is considering moving to the free state, to New Hampshire, that they shouldn't do it. I'm not sitting there, not out there on Twitter telling people, don't support the free state project. Don't move to New Hampshire. If you want to do it, do it. I think that's great. Conversely, though, I think what I am curious about what you and others think is, like, there sometimes seems to be a disregard for the people who just aren't going to do it. Whether it's just because they say, you know what, I don't believe in that strategy, I want to try other things, or whether it's a matter of, I would if I could, but I just can't, for many different reasons. A lot of the times when I bring that stuff up, it seems like the response is just dismissive. It's like, well, if you cared about liberty, you'd be here. It's like, well, that's not really a persuasive argument. You don't know everyone's circumstances. You can't say, you can't look into their brains or their hearts and know how much they care about liberty, and you can't know how easy it is for them to go there or not. So I guess where I want to move to is the Libertarian Party in New Hampshire, and I guess what my confusion is, and I've tried talking to this with my friend Reed. I've tried talking about this with Jeremy on the Twitter Spaces, and I want to get your thoughts on this. My confusion is this: if all the New Hampshire people who believe in the Free State Project were just in the Free State Project doing the things that you guys are doing, I would be applauding it, be supporting it, and I would think that is great. But I think that if you're going to be in the Libertarian Party, that is necessarily a national collaborative organization, right? And I'm not saying New Hampshire, Libertarian Party New Hampshire, should be completely subordinate to what other states think or what the National Party thinks, but I also don't think it's fair to say that they should be completely ambivalent to it. And by the way, Jeremy said those exact words to me as well. He doesn't think that, he agrees that the Libertarian Party New Hampshire shouldn't be completely subservient or ambivalent. But I guess it's just like, I don't know what that looks like sometimes, because sometimes it seems like you guys are, it feels like what's happening is the people in LPNH are trying to have their cake and eat it too. They're like, we want to have the benefits of promoting our strategy with the LP branding, but we don't want to actually take any responsibility or any of the considerations that come from being part of a like this more national thing that is the Libertarian Party, which is like, again, it's like, I don't think that it has to be a zero-sum game. I think that the Free State Project, the people on their individual accounts can do whatever they want. I just think that in the sake of just consideration and being good allies, if you're going to be in the Libertarian Party coalition, I think there has to be some compromise and give and take from both sides, right? I mean, and I tried to mediate that between like Dave and Mike and Jeremy and Reed to be like, listen, like, I think that Mike and Dave got really upset over some of the tweets that I actually thought were really good. But there were a couple tweets that I thought were really bad. And it's like, you know what, we're never going to agree on everything, but that there's no consideration, and that anytime anyone tries to make, it's like, hey, we're all part of this same Libertarian Party coalition, and we don't like that you did X. And then all the response that we get back is the regurgitation of, well, it's, you don't understand. You're not in New Hampshire. We don't care about your strategies. We don't, you need to abandon the authoritarian 49 and move here. And any serious libertarian's going to come to New Hampshire. And it's like, oh, okay, if you believe that, why are you in the Libertarian Party? That's what I don't get. To me, it's like, square peg, round hole. Help me make sense of this. What are your thoughts on this, and what do you think I'm missing?
Well, I think you think that the Libertarian Party has to look like X, and I don't understand that. I mean, if you talk to Nick Sarwark, he has a very particular idea about what the Libertarian Party ought to look like, and it looks like Y, which disagrees with you. I was really dissatisfied with how the Libertarian Party looked under Sarwark and the Woketarians. I was very happy when the Mises Caucus came in and kind of changed some of the messaging, because to me that was just it was anti-ethical. It was not particularly focused on the libertarian difference, and it wasn't going to do what I wanted to do, which is to excite and motivate the latent libertarians, the people who can come and be uncovered as libertarians. I still think that one of the big differences here is you're saying 10%, I'm going 3%. But
and that might be where our major divide is. It might be you think that I think we both agree that we're dealing with margins, but I think maybe you guys just think the margins are so thin that, when like we think that there are people who are reachable, that sometimes, and again, it's like, I always want to be careful not to blow things out of proportions. 99.8% of the time, I love what LPNH is saying. It's like, and that really needs to be stressed, because sometimes I think we do make, some people will accuse me of like, you're always complaining about LPNH. It's like, well, listen, I loved the Happy Holidays tweet. I even loved some of the Nina Turner tweets. It's like, I loved, what was the most recent one with the American Defamation League? And they trolled them by saying that there's a Jewish plot to take over the country, and it was like pictures of like Rothbard and Mises and all that. And then they quoted that, and like, oh my god, like that is master level trolling, and I am here for it. Like, I think that is great. So there is so much that LPNH does that I love. The less than 1% of the time that I think they do something wrong, it's just like, hey guys, to me, it's just a simple math calculation. We're trying to create more libertarians. However many, now, we might disagree on the number. Maybe we can increase it by 2%. Maybe it's by 8%. But like, we should be aligned on doing that, because some percentage of those new libertarians will go to New Hampshire. So it's a mutually beneficial thing. And it's like, hey, if there is less than 1% of instances where we say, hey, maybe that one missed the mark, maybe steer clear of that one. I don't think that's unreasonable for us to say that. You know what I mean? And it's like, the pushback seems to be that like we're giving into some kind of progressive mind think, or we're trying to, I don't know, we're afraid of being called racists and stuff, which is like, it's not that I'm afraid of being called a racist. It's that I just don't think it's smart to give our enemy easy, access to call us that. When the Southern Poverty Law Center called the Mises Caucus racist, we laughed about that. We like shared posts about it, because we were like, they got nothing on us. Like, you look, read that entire article, there's nothing. But when you have a tweet that people are going to just see out of context, that you see a Libertarian Party on it, and it's telling someone that if they are, telling a black woman that if she's asking for reparations, that will fund to have her deported or taken back to Africa. It's like, listen, I understand what they're trying to say, but that message isn't getting through. And I think there are people within that 2 to 10% of the population that could be libertarians that are going to see that, and we've just made the job of converting them that much harder. And to me, it's like, why it seems like self-inflicted wounds that don't need to be made. So I don't know. That's where my confusion is.
Here's the thing, Jacob. How would you not make that thing? Would you have some sort of censorship board, and who would be on it? Because I have to tell you that the Happy Holidays, the child labor, the civil rights, we've made a lot of tweets that we got immediate pushback by notable people, and you can't do that, you can't do that. Turned out we were right. Right.
And listen,
hold on.
I agree.
You're saying, what if we had some prescience to know long term that's a wrong path with 100% certainty? Great. Yeah, sure. How do we do that? But if you're saying, well, what I want to do is I want to review every single one of your 40 tweets every single day before you send it out. As a matter of fact, we're going to set up a panel that will be a censorship panel. I mean, how do you implement this, Jake?
I don't want to implement anything. I just want there to be a good faith collaboration where we're all friends, we're all on the same team. And listen, if we were coming to you guys 50% of the time, 10% of the time, and saying, don't say this, don't say that, then I'd think you guys would have a point. But when it's less than when it's like 99% of the time, we're loving what you guys do, and less than 1% of the time, there's a few instances where we go, oh, guys, we think that really listen, you guys aren't going to bat 100, and we're just calling out the few fouls that you guys hit. But then what really strains the relationship is when, listen, like if you're friends with someone, or if you're married to someone, and they are unable to admit ever that they have made a mistake, if they're unwilling to compromise ever, that puts a strain on the relationship. It puts a strain on the ability to collaborate and work together. That's just reality. That's fact. I'm not suggesting an authoritarian solution to this. What I've always suggested is a libertarian solution, which is just talking, which is just trying to get on the same page and work together and find voluntary agreements and solutions to these disagreements. I have never suggested we need to censor new libertarian.
I mean, I haven't heard what this solution looks like. I mean, do we have 50 people from each of the affiliates come on and they do a review of our stuff, or I think it's just common sense that if 99% of the time all of your friends and allies are with you, and then less than 1% of the time a lot of people say, maybe you missed the mark on that, maybe half of that 1% of the time, you should consider listening to your friends. Well, we actually do listen to them. We do listen to them. And, a lot of times we go, and we have taken things down. And I have to tell you, one of the things that probably upsets LPNH more than anything else is continuing to harp about the times when we missed the mark, we took something down, and frankly, post doing that, we're going, now, why did we take that down? Maybe we shouldn't have. And yet we hear over and over again, well, that one was terrible. That one was terrible. And it's just the same 6 or 7. And, we have to hear about those, even though we took them down. So, I think that there's something to be said that if we're doing, 30, 40 tweets a day, and most of them are fine, and then there's this one odd one, and then we get mixed messages. Some people love it, a lot of people love it, and then there's people who are leaders and people, you can't say that, oh my god, my donors are upset, but now whom are we going to listen to? Who carries the weight? We don't have any a priori board that's going to vote on this censorship, right? And we're not going to accept that. I can tell you right now, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen with the people who picked up and cut their ties and left their jobs and left their families and moved to New Hampshire for freedom and not being ruled by some. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
And no one in the Mises Caucus is calling for that.
So how does it work, Jacob? Tell me how it works. Is it you who calls us and says? Or
I think it's
check with you and you say, oh no, it's totally fine. I go, well,
listen.
Dave Smith hated it, and now I don't. We don't know how to bridge that gap, right?
There are two options, and we might have to leave it. There's let Calvin jump in here and moderate a bit, and maybe ask some more questions as we come to the end. But there are two options here, right? Option one is you guys can continue. I mean, and both options are very similar because again, 99.8% of the time, none of us are complaining about what Libertarian Party New Hampshire says. We love it. When there's a disagreement,
we're not doing our job then. We actually want certain people in the Libertarian Party who are not particularly strong.
I actually let me speak for myself here. I agree with 99.8. I think people like Dave agree with you guys less than me. Like Dave had a problem with the Happy Holidays tweet. I didn't. I loved that.
I would also be in the 90s. I don't know where exactly. I haven't looked at every single tweet, but I would still be in the 90s.
Oh well, yeah. Given the number that we do each day, you're way above 90. You're really talking about a small handful of tweets, and then.
But you know what? It is also.
How do you negotiate that? Right? Is it Dave Smith who now runs LPNH and is the censor of it? I mean,
no, but I think
Heiss, who is it?
Well, listen, I think what you can do is try to figure out what the consensus is, and I think so. Let's take this tweet. Let's take two tweets: the Happy Holidays tweet and the first Nina Turner tweet, which was the one about taxes being slavery. Some people were upset at that, but a lot of people, like myself, like Clint, even the Libertarian Party and the Mises Caucus accounts, retweeted liked those tweets and retweeted, and it was a small contingent who didn't. But then if you look at tweets like, now some of them that I acknowledge were taken down, but then some that
Yeah,
weren't.
so don't bring up the ones that were taken down, because that's just going to get us upset. Because
Yeah, and I'm not going
we do
to.
this,
But,
and then all of a sudden, it doesn't matter if we take it down; we're still being vilified by it.
right. So let's talk about the recent one that wasn't taken down, the reparations and deporting people one. That one, there wasn't really anyone who really came, like I didn't come to the defense, the Libertarian Party didn't come to the defense, Mike didn't. It's like so I think it's like, listen, if there's division, then it's like, well, some people agree, some people disagree. But if it's like, hey, only the people in New Hampshire like this, and a lot of other people are saying, we were really behind you on this one, but not this one, there's two options. You guys can either say, you know what, enough people in our ally group and friend group have said this one missed the mark, and let's just talk about if we should take this down or not. Or you can say, you know what, we're not going to take it down, and that's fine. The only option that's not available here is that you guys say whatever you want, and that there's never any criticism of it. And I think you have to at least acknowledge that we have a right, especially, I mean, everyone has a right to free speech and to criticize the things that other people say. But if we're all going to be in the same coalition called the Libertarian Party, then I think that even more so gives us the right to occasionally criticize a tweet. And sometimes, now listen, like I'll grant you, I think it's legitimate that you guys probably sometimes feel unfairly ganged up on for a rep of being bad at messaging or always making bad messages when it's a small number. And yes, some of those that were, I think we all agree were bad, you guys took down, and then you feel a little bit scorned when like you still get crap for those. That's fair, and I'll acknowledge that. But then the flip side of that is some of us feel like it doesn't matter the 99 out of 100 times that we're retweeting and commenting and loving what you guys say. It's like the one criticism, and then we'll get demonized for that one criticism. So it happens on both sides. And all I'm saying is we need to stop approaching this as some kind of adversarial thing and just approach it like friends who are on the same team and try to find a consensus and collaboration. I don't want any authoritarian solution, and I want LPNH to be free to experiment with that radical messaging. But just to consider that sometimes they're going to miss the mark, and when you miss the mark, you're going to get criticized for it. That seems to me to be reasonable and just acknowledging the way the world works.
Yeah, and I think you're right that people will criticize, and God knows we are criticized more than any other affiliate, and we don't really have thin skins on it. We're pretty thick skinned about it. I actually am working with a group that is trying to create a black state consensus in the South. They're doing kind of a free state project model. They're saying, look, why do we not have our own states? Now they're making a mistake, and I'm trying to save them from it, of trying to choose 6 or 7 states to simultaneously make their black state. They want a super majority, and I go through the math. Here's the math, guys. What are you thinking? They're not listening to the math. I do think that there's something to be said for separation. Now, that was what that particular tweet was about. Look, if you want to rule over us and steal from us, we'll pay for you to move, and if there's a black sovereign state somewhere and Nita Turner wants to rule over them, that's great. She can do that. But what she was saying was that she wants to steal from a bunch of people. And I think the people have a right to say, we don't want you to do that. And as a matter of fact, if you want to do that, why don't you go someplace where you can do that, but not here? Now, do I love that? Do I love that tweet? I hated that tweet. I come from the anti-racist left. And so for me, that was all Archie Bunker. It just reminded me of all in the family. And I was going, oh shit, because I have to apologize for a lot of, I choose to apologize for a lot of these things. And that was when I was going, oh my goodness. But then I'm going, well, okay, but we are working with these separatists, these other people who are separatists, and they want the group that I'm working with is not libertarian, by the way. They are very leftist. And I think leftists need a home. Another area that we're trying to get is the socialist state project in Vermont. We want these leftists to have a home, to have their own place. And just, I mean, it shouldn't be New Hampshire. But the Vermont the Vermont libertarians go, why are you sending them here? I go, we just don't want them here,
Right. And that goes to what I was saying earlier, which is that although I agree with you that, listen, we can squabble about the percentages, but we're not going to have a libertarian country, let alone world. But I think what you're getting at is what I was getting at, which is that I think there are more people waking up to the idea of at least a peaceful separation, saying, you know what, we have radically different values and it's impossible for us all to live under the same systems of governance. It would be more peaceful and mutually beneficial for the socialists to live as socialists and libertarians live as libertarians, authoritarians live as authoritarians. And, I mean, I'm not saying everyone's on that train, but I think there is momentum that is building towards that. And I think that we can all, in our different areas of influence, which I'll concede, you guys have more influence than us right now, and probably will continue to have more influence. It just comes down to a matter of, for those of us who aren't moving to New Hampshire, what are we going to do? Like, we're not going to do nothing, so we're going to find the best things that we can do from the areas that we are at. And I don't think that has to be in conflict with you guys, because I think, not everyone's going to move to New Hampshire. But hey, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about it, I would never discourage you.
You should be encouraging. I mean, there's another. It doesn't have to be that you guys have to force us to conform to you guys, right? Instead, what you could say is, New Hampshire, that's a different animal. They are doing things quite differently. That's really where we send our most rabid libertarians. That's not us in Pennsylvania. Us in Pennsylvania, we're here to work with you as kind of a loyal minority, and to try to take out some of the worst parts of the authoritarianism, the things that really hurt people. We're not like those New Hampshire folks. So just differentiate yourself.
We're
not speaking for you. We don't want to speak. We can't speak for you. I don't think you can't do the type of messaging that we can do. You cannot do that. It doesn't work for you guys. We're doing something, a type of messaging. And frankly, Texas, their messaging isn't our messaging. I mean, well, we're all working on the same team. Why isn't Texas, Texas is going to message how Texas messages. Pennsylvania will message how Pennsylvania messages, and New Hampshire will message how New Hampshire messages.
Also, to reiterate something, I have said publicly, and I'll say here that I have much more criticism for the messages coming out of like LP Louisiana than I do for LPNH. But LP Louisiana is like an account with like 1,000 followers, and LPNH has a much like kudos to you guys. You guys are the largest state affiliate account. You guys get the most news. You get the most earned media, and that's great. And it's 99% of the time I'm all for it. Like that last tweet you talked about that even you said you didn't like. Like, it's not the end of the world, and it's not something we agreed to talk about it here, so that's why we're talking about it. But like, just a personal anecdote, like, I'm making a lot of progress when I'm talking to people in my church about libertarianism. But like, my normie churchgoers and friends, if they see a tweet that has Libertarian Party attached to it, and it's the deport Nina Turner back to Africa thing, it's going to be a little bit like I'm going to have to immediately try to explain a lot of context to that.
Yeah, and the
'cause
context is New Hampshire is they're actually trying to create a libertarian homeland. They don't particularly like people who want to use government to steal from innocent people. That was what that was from. Do I like it? I don't like it.
But that's what all statism is. It's like all statism is stealing from people to give to other people. It's not just we have call for reparations. It's all of it.
No, free insulin. We hit Nina Turner on the free insulin one. I
know who's going to pay for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not who she
listen.
And it was a fantastic. That was a fantastic.
And I was all for that one. I loved that one. The trolling her on the who's gonna provide the insulin and comparing it to slave wages and picking cotton. Like that was brilliant. Yeah. I think anyway, we don't have to.
Because you don't move. So when we started, we had fewer followers than Pennsylvania. Okay, which we should. We're 1/10 your size. We're 1/10 your size, so we should have about 1/10 of your followers. And we started off at a smaller number. We are now 13 times your size. We're 56 and you're 4, something like that. We have grown so rapidly. So what you're talking about, okay, is something that's going to be studied in the marketing books from here on in. About how to do social media. We're doing something that's never been done. In my 40 years, libertarian messaging was so ho-hum. It was so boring. And now all of a sudden it's exciting. We have international people talking about it. Now, we're doing something that's on the edge. It's a radical edge. It's very hard to do. The people who are doing it are absolutely brilliant. The people who can't do it keep on pretending that they know how to do it better, or they know what's going to work and what's not going to work, and they're going to have multiple people coming in and arguing over whether we should do it this way. Why don't you pay attention and say, "Oh my goodness, have you seen what's going down in Argentina?
Yeah.
Have you heard his messaging?"
Oh, listen, none of us are against.
No. I'm saying maybe there's something to learn here, as opposed to being so worried we're going to be called racist, so worried we're going to be called anti-Semitic, Semites. We took down a number of the 6 million jokes down, right? Now, the reason why we took it down was because we had this everybody was so scared. Oh my God, ADL will come after us and all this type of stuff, right? And as a matter of fact, they did do it. And now we're looking at what's going on. The reason why that joke was up there was because we knew where the locus of censorship was coming from. We knew that. And so we said, hey, what we're going to do is, you can't say this number, we're going to say it. I ran a poll the other day and it had something to do with, so somebody has this magic word that every time they use it, it causes everyone to freak out and stuff like that. What do? Do you bow to it? Do you, oh my goodness, treat it like a sacred word? Or do you ridicule it until it has no power over you anymore? And, I think LPNH may be onto something, because we have all these little trump cards that they fling around all the time, and we are supposed to shut the heck up and bow to the socialists and to the authoritarians every time they throw them. Well, what if we didn't? What if we didn't? What if we took that card and just threw it right back in their face? And that's what you're seeing. LPNH, we can do stuff like that, and you get to see the results. The results look damn good to me. And you're saying, well, it would be better, or it would be better for you. I'm not 100% sure. What if we're actually opening up this space? What if we're making libertarianism exciting again? What if we're making libertarianism not scared not scared of these stupid Trump cards that they keep throwing at us. Everything's a dog whistle now. You know, you use the number 14. You had 14 words in your tweet. They're counting
That was
words
so bad.
now.
That was so dumb. That was so dumb.
Goodness. So you know what we're going to be doing? We're going to be doing 14 words tweets from now. It's like, you know, now you can say, well, they can use that against us. They're using it against us without it. We are just going to hammer them until they are shown to be the idiots that they are. Now, should Pennsylvania do that? No. But you just say, hey, New Hampshire, they're doing a different way, you know? Yeah, you know, we also don't agree in you know, you could say, you know, you generally, you know, we agree parents should be the ones to decide whether their children should work and not the state. Okay. We think that's something that's important, but we're not pushing that right now. Right. We had presidential candidates from the LP telling us that we were doing it wrong. Right. that this is not what libertarians believe. They should take this down right now.
Gary Johnson doesn't know what libertarianism is.
But whom do we listen to? Whom do we listen to? I mean, and then you look at the results. You look at the results and you go, okay, maybe, you know, a little humility. Maybe I'm seeing something here that I ought to be paying attention to. You listen to the ANCAP who's running now in Argentina, Milei, and you listen to his rhetoric, and you tell me whether it's more like LP Texas, LP Louisiana, LP PA, or LPNH. You tell me which ones it sounds more like. Okay, he actually is now in the lead to be president. Now, what the heck are we have to lose? Why are we hiding? What are we so scared of? What if we actually start taking a chance? Okay, I get it. You guys don't want to take a chance. Great. So you say LPNH. My goodness. You know,
well, no,
I'm in Pennsylvania for a reason. I'm not out there. You know. I want to work with you guys, you know, but they're making a point, but they're making it too strong. But why don't we compromise halfway? Okay, use us to be the reasonable ones and compromise halfway. You know?
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, and I also I don't want you guys to change again what you do. I don't want that to be misconstrued in this. I think you and I are aligned on the big picture. As to what your guys' role is, and I support that. I agree with pretty much everything you said there. And I agree with the danger of letting the censorship regime make us afraid to say certain things. That's definitely a problem.
They have all these cars and they keep throwing them down, and we keep kowtowing to them.
And we shouldn't. I just think that there are some times where you have to be strategic in terms of, like, it's not always a clear cut, like, your choice is either bow to them or do the exact opposite. I mean, I hate to use this analogy because I have to curse, and I, as a Christian, try to not curse unless I have to. But it's the analogy of the goat fucker. If someone says you're a goat fucker, and then you're like, no, I'm not. And to prove it, I'm going to go ironically fuck a goat. Like, okay, I'm ironically. It's like, so again, it's like sometimes, and it's okay, very
but
rare.
we're not doing that. We're saying, oh, let me just tell you about all my goats, and I've got goats here, and I went out to dinner last night with my goat. That's what we're doing. We're ridiculing them.
I know.
We are ridiculing them for their ridiculousness.
And again,
we're not
all
going
here
around
for it,
and actually effing the goat.
I know, I'm all here for it. I think a couple times the balancing act wasn't perfectly executed, but you know what? You guys hit more than you miss, and that has to be said.
How
you guys hit way more than you miss.
Balance is. This is what I'm talking about. We are in uncharted territory.
You're right.
So we went from under 4,000 followers to what, 53, 54, 55,000. We're number one affiliate. We were in the scree. We were down in the street. You guys have made it up to about 46 or 4,600. So you're just a little bit off of where we started. And you're saying, well, LPPA knows. We know how to do this. And I don't think you do. I don't know that we do. We're working in the dark here. We're working on the cutting edge. This New Hampshire is the cutting edge. All right, we're the cutting edge on everything, on crypto, on homeschooling, on guns, on Liberty clubhouses. You look at what's happening with Liberty, come to New Hampshire and see what we're doing. In terms of the communications, we're also on the cutting edge. And I swear, this is going to be something that's studied, because you don't take something that is just like flatline milquetoast and you know, you can predict how many followers you have by how many people you have in your population. And you don't see this type of thing without something fundamental being hit. And I just suggest that instead of being so sure that you know how this works, that you take a step back and take a deep breath and go, maybe I don't. Maybe I can learn something here. Maybe I'm just going to pay attention here. Now, I know that you can imagine terrible things because I grew up that way too. That's the thing. That's the trouble I had with Nina Turner. The first Nina Turner, I go, oh God. And then I was thinking about, okay, we can justify this one. But my first thing is, I've been trained by the authoritarian horde to think only in their Overton window. I can only think like this. And I go, oh God, they've gone, oh my God. No,
well, I think it's also, I think where this partly stems from, which and I agree with your solution, by the way. The solution is kind of, it's a good cop, bad cop, and you guys are the bad cop, and we come in as the good cop.
Yeah.
But for those of us who are more oriented towards the conversion, it does sometimes when we're talking to our normies and it's like, and they bring that up, and but you know what? Even the bad Nina Turner one, the one I'm calling bad, it wasn't that insurmountable. Like, it didn't actually cause all the doom and gloom that like people said. And I think we could probably agree on this point that, yeah, there is a lot that I think people can learn from your style of messaging. And even if they're not going to fully adopt it, we should be utilizing you guys. You guys are kind of the tip of the spear in the movement. And, those of us who aren't going to go to New Hampshire, we should still be supporting you guys in what you do and reaping in the benefits from that. So,
well, you should also be sending us your most, the people who are really kind of bashing their head against the wall, and you're scared that they're going to go into that depression, giving up stage. I don't want to lose them. There's a place for them. There is a home for them. There is a homeland for them where they can actually make gigantic progress. I'll take all of that energy and use it here in New Hampshire, and you are going to make progress. Whatever you do in Pennsylvania, whatever you want to do in Pennsylvania, you're going to be able to do it 10 times, 20 times easier here, because we have the resources, and we have the network, and we have the infrastructure, and we have the support, and we're moving together on this. So there's no reason that you guys should be burning out. And I know that you guys don't burn out because you've made it through a number of these things. That's great. Maybe in 10, 20 years, though, you will start burning out. And you've got a place to go.
Possible. Yeah.
You've got a place to go. But the people I'm most concerned with are the ones who they come in full of vim and vigor. They see that the liberty promise. They see consensual relationship. They see win-win society, and they go, "How can I do that? I can do that. I'm going to work really hard." And then they fail, and they fail, and they fail, and they fail, and you go, "Oh well, if only we did this, or only we did that." And no, you have a systemic problem. You are surrounded by authoritarians. They are in control of your state, and they will remain in control. And you need a place where you have libertarians around you. Try passing a libertarian. Try doing something libertarian in an authoritarian state versus in a libertarian state. You're going to have an easier time in a libertarian state. Give them an easier chance. So I highly recommend that you say to those people, don't just oh yeah, I'm not going to argue you against moving. That doesn't make any sense. Say go go and create this homeland. I hope that you're really successful. Make it really good so that by the time that I get tired of bashing my head on the wall, I'll have a good place to land. Okay. So tell them that at least. And then the people who go, oh, well, New Hampshire, they're libertarian and they said this thing. Oh my God. Yeah. We're LPPA. We approach things quite differently. We work with you. We believe that you can be talked to and made sense to, and we're gonna work together. And and here's the 50% solution. Great. And now all of a sudden you're accepting LPNH as LPNH, right? The stoicism argument is that you don't go and try to change things that you can't change. And the hard boys of LPNH who picked up their lives, cut off all their ties, and moved to New Hampshire in order to build liberty, are you really going to out push them? When Mises Caucus came in and they tried to push around LPNH, my goodness, what a bad strategy. Yeah, I know there's Mises Caucus people who are hard, but New Hampshire is New Hampshire because for a very particular reason. It's a self-selection bias that's here. The people who move here are are not going to get pushed around. So don't do that. And I can tell you that second Nina Turner one, I bet you anything that would have been taken down if we didn't know two things. One, it's already been photographed and it'll be used, and then they'll say, "Oh, well, they took it down," but so it doesn't really matter. And two, if we weren't still criticized by supposed allies about it, even though we took it down, that we're getting both of those now. Is it
those are fair points. So, Calvin, do you got anything you want to throw at us here before we close out? Because then we're getting close to wrapping up. And I've enjoyed the back and forth,
Jacob, I didn't mean to come down so hard.
No. Listen, I love it. I love the back and forth, and I think you raised some valid points. We agree on more than we disagree on.
Right, and I want to emphasize that this is in the spirit of what Jacob was saying earlier, with like us agreeing with 99%, give or take, of the tweets that come out. I think that's still true. But with that said, I want to just read off, Dennis, what I messaged you earlier about like possible ways that, at the very least, LPPA and LP New Hampshire could work together, and maybe it could serve as a model for how they could work with other states as well. So I think I broke it down into 4 points. I'll just throw it out there, and anyone on either side of this, if they want to, always follow up with us later about this, we'd be happy to talk about it more. So one of the points was, mutual constructive criticism and feedback on social media. So, in the case of New Hampshire, there's those 1% of times where you might want to, have a talk about some of those things, but that goes both ways. If they have suggestions for some of the content that we're putting out, not that we could be exactly like LPNH, but at least for me, I'm new at this still, relatively speaking. So I wouldn't mind some tips every so often either. And then
and just to quickly interrupt, we've done that before. We've gone to the people who are involved in LPNH and been like, "Hey, you got any spicy takes that we could go out there and push?" And we never go as hard as they do, but we we're not unwilling to take risks, but we definitely do have different risk considerations.
Yeah, and I just want to note
exactly.
that LPNH is a very small group, right? We have 100 different groups here. LPNH is a very small group, and the comms team is a small group within that. And so, for that comms team to be working with 49 different affiliates, and their hands are so full just doing the 20 or 30 tweets that they do. It may surprise you, but there's a lot of time and effort and thought that goes into there, a lot of negotiations, a lot of discussions. What about this? What about that? We're not calling up outside people, though, to do that. They're calling up, for a while there, I was supposed to be the kind of an elder that would be somebody who would provide kind of the more thoughtful pieces after the fact of it. But they were moving so fast. I couldn't keep up with them. And so I really just handle the big, the ones that get everyone outside and go, okay, let's talk about this in terms of libertarian ethics. But yeah, I love the idea of us working together, but you're talking about a teeny tiny little group and 49 other affiliates, all of whom want to quote unquote work together. And we just don't have the time and resources to do it. You know, we're too busy going from 4K followers to 54K followers to 100K followers. That's what we're doing.
Well, I think the other points build into that a little bit more. Plus, it wouldn't have to be with every state. I'm sure Louisiana probably isn't interested in working with New Hampshire, but that doesn't mean PA wouldn't be.
Oh, they want to censor us. Don't worry. They have some good ideas about what we shouldn't be saying.
Right. So just to continue on, we don't have to get too much into this, but at least as far as the state accounts go, and even the Mises Caucus accounts, just avoiding direct attacks on each other publicly through those channels. Like that's definitely something that can be worked on all sides, and I think that's something that important to keep in mind as we go forward. A second or third point was at least on your side, advertising Free State Project more outside of New Hampshire. And I don't keep track of what degree you do that exactly, but I made a suggestion of like tabling at the LPPA convention, for example. And I think if we do work together more and we do cross-pollinate more on other areas, the reception will certainly be warmer. And then if we do have people who are banging their head against the table or they don't necessarily know, what to do about it, then maybe they would be attracted to.
Listen. I'll call someone out by name right now. Ben Heckman, my good friend, who got burnt out of the LP, and he's like, "Oh, I'm joining the GOP." Like, no, go to New Hampshire. If you're done with the LP, get out of PA and go to New Hampshire. Because
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, both of you guys could be House legislators if you move to New Hampshire. I mean, I don't know what you guys are doing in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, maybe at some point, but not in the near future, at least. The last point was more cross-posting, again, on the social media side, particularly for calls to action that would be relevant to each other, such as Defend the Guard. In fact, I have to give a shout out to the Mises Caucus team, like Amy Lepore and the rest that are doing, Defend the Guard phone banking. And that is something that the last time they were doing a phone banking, that was for New Hampshire. That's still ongoing. So, when those opportunities arise, we should definitely be taking advantage and like sharing each other's content, particularly when it's something like that. That's so important.
Yeah, well, we support Defend the Guard so much. As a matter of fact, some of the people there last night were talking about Defend the Guard and passing out Defend the Guard stuff, and we just, I mean, part of that phone bank was us internally doing it also. So, yeah, definitely Defend the Guard is absolutely fantastic. In terms of not burning bridges, that's more of a personality issue than. I don't know. I prefer to. I know how hard this is. I know how hard it was for me to change. I know how hard it has been for everyone I've actually uncovered. Right, I won't use conversion. I've actually uncovered how hard it was for them, and I know that they're at different stages at different times and different brands. And I'm kind of that old school, big tent, thin libertarian, live and let live. So I really appreciate that we are always at different stages and we're always at different levels and we're always trying our best to become a little bit more consistent and a little bit more ethical. And I understand this. I think it's tough though, because, there's other people who aren't like that. And what do? Right? Do you chastise them? No, that's not going to work. It works with some people. Doesn't work with a lot of people, especially with hard-headed folks. So I would like us to be kinder to each other, especially when we see people in Pennsylvania working so hard. New Hampshire, we sent a busload of people to for the Mises Caucus takeover to Pennsylvania. So when you talk about helping PA and stuff like that, I think that we've actually done a good job of helping PA. I don't know that you guys would have turned it, but we had a slew of people who went and spent their time and money and stuff like that too.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
Now did you guys help us take it over New Hampshire? No, you didn't. Now, Michael was here, Jeff was here, but you guys, Pennsylvania, where were you? Okay, they're from Pennsylvania. All right, we'll let you go.
All right. Well, that's a good note to end on, though. Definitely be kinder to each other. That's a good takeaway. So
I would love it, and part of it is just kind of acknowledging that some people, that's not where they are right now, and it's sad. I wish we were. I really do. And we have kind of this guideline in New Hampshire that if you see something that you don't really like, you don't bitch about it. Right? Don't complain about it. Do something. So one of the things I'm really busy. I after PorcFest, this last PorcFest, I started, I think 3 other projects, but my 4th project that I would like to do is something I call Friendly Porcupines, which actually brings more of that aloha, friendly spirits of the old school, live and let live, high tolerance, back, and just have a mouthpiece for that. Because I do think, one of the things it's interesting that's happening here in New Hampshire, and we didn't get to talk about, what happens when you get a large number of libertarians moving in to a small area. But when Pennsylvania people meet a libertarian, it's like, oh my God, we agree on 98% of this stuff. I can't believe it. I feel so relieved. 98% of this. Now in New Hampshire, we're so used to it. It's like, wait, we disagree about 2%. And what we're actually seeing now is some siloing, which, I don't actually, that's not my personality. That's not what I actually, but I think we need to do that. I think we have people who are generally intolerant, but they're not going to use violence, but they're intolerant of other people's lifestyle and beliefs. And, libertarianism is very thin. It's not a full philosophy of life. It's just this codicil, as long as the other person consents, that's all it is. So there are people who will live quite different lives, and we're seeing that in terms of different liberty community centers, in terms of different liberty groups and just different focus and groups setting up. I think it's a natural and a healthy thing. I would like us to be a little bit kinder along the edges, and that's a bigger issue than even libertarianism.
All right. Well, Dennis, we really appreciate you coming on and talking. It's been a lot of fun. Before we go, though, just, your last chance to any closing remarks, and if you want to give plugs for Free State Project, if people want to, check that out and are interested in if they're done beating their heads against the wall, as you say, and they want to go where they can, where running into libertarians isn't like finding a new best friend like it is down here.
Well, what I highly recommend is that you not move to New Hampshire, but you come and vacation here. I call it the Porcupine Vacation. We actually had I created and led a coalition of 9 Free Staters. We bought an inn. It's an inn and a restaurant. We highly recommend you come. We'll put you up for a week. Give you a good deal on the room, and then you just go and explore. You go head north to the lakes, and you go out to the Rochester Moose Mountain area, and then you go down to the Portsmouth, and then down to the seacoast, and then you go to Exeter, and then you go down to Nashua and Manchester, and you go to all these different places from this one location and meet all different types of porcupines and all different groups, and all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, it's not like Pennsylvania except more north and more east. It's a really different animal that we're talking about here. So I highly recommend, if you ever thought about going to some far away culture place, and you go, boy, it would be so funny to see those Holland people with their wooden shoes, or whatever it is. Why don't you go and vacation in the Libertarian Homeland and actually see what it's like here? And as we're building this, we're very busy here. Most people are not on Twitter. We have, 3 or 4 or 5 people are very, very active. And then, a bunch of people who really aren't. Everyone else is building, but come and talk to them and join their groups and go shooting with them on a day, or to go to a homeschooling meeting, or go to a farm party, or go to, that we have just so many things going on all the time. So, contact me, DM me, Dennis Pratt free, and contact me. I'll give you a good deal. I'll give you a discount code, and come for a porcupine vacation. That's my high recommendation. Stop thinking that you know what we're doing, because you don't know what we're doing until you show up here and see it for yourself.
Oh, thanks, Dennis. I will take you up on that if I find myself up in that area.
No, I want you to come up. I want you to schedule. Come up. Bring the kids. Bring the family.
All right, we'll figure something out. Jacob?
Yeah, no, my wife and I are discussing doing PorcFest this coming year, so that might be in the works. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks again, Dennis, for coming on. And
thank you so much.
Yep, and thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back again soon. Take care.
Thank you for having me on.